Thank you. I'm going to talk about something that's very nerdy to me. Can we ask who's ever played a role-playing game? All right, that's most of you. Okay, I failed math in university. Nice. Who's ever been a dungeon master in a role-playing game? Right. So if you think that the one takeaways are crazy, talk to me afterwards. Don't interrupt me now. My name is Marcus. I'm on daytime. I'm a scrum master for a company called HiQ. We share a lot of similar colors to Agila Sverige, but we do different things. And I've done that for 5 years. But perhaps more importantly here, I've been a dungeon master, or I played role-playing games for half my life, about 15 years. Started in gymnasiet, as we call it in Sweden. But we're going to do a quick recap what role-playing games are before we dig into why I think this is important. Role-playing games, in essence, is this shared collaborative storytelling. Imagine sitting around a campfire, telling stories about walking up mountains, killing dragons, or dethroning corrupt kings, or hijacking spacecraft. We add some games to that, and by essentially introducing randomness, and we're telling you can't just say you slayed a dragon, you gotta fight a little, you gotta work with randomness a little. And then, because most of us, from being a developer or coach or whatever you might do in the day, we don't really see ourselves slaying dragons very often. Most assume a role. A gallant knight, roguish trader, smuggler, whatever you want to be, limits are essentially off. And we do this because we like imaginations. Some call that the thing that differentiates us from a lot of different animals is the fact that we can imagine the future. We can plan by setting up scenarios and in our head train before they ever become reality. And this essentially gamifying that. Now, how does this all connect to Agile? Well, there's the obvious connections. Of course, we have user story mapping, and we have different kinds of how do we tell stories to engage our different stakeholders. But to me, this is more about the group dynamics. When I started drawing role-playing, I was a 15-year-old boy. I wasn't really the kind of person who went out to a lot of social engagement. We did a lot of computer games. I studied programming. I learned that one of my old gymnasium teachers are here, but I didn't recognize him, so that was my first down today. But this kind of taught us how do we engage in a group. And we were really, really bad at it first. People really wanted to hog the limelight. People wanted to be the superheroes that they imagined they wanted to be. And over the years, we kind of learned that it's not enough to be the person who does it all. In a role-playing game, the story is kind of together. It's all about how we do it. It's not all about how I do it. And after a few years, I started taking on this facilitating role that's called a game master. Now, a few of you might have played computer games. In computer games, you have a computer that mimics the reality that you interact with. In role-playing games, in tabletop role-playing games, if we want to be pedantic, you have a game master, a dungeon master, or whatever you might call it in your system. And they are essentially everything that the individuals aren't. The individuals want to hijack a bus. Well, it's up to the game master to figure out how the bus got there. The individuals want to find a new friend. Well, it's up to the game master to figure out where that friend might be. And this taught me personally a lot about how to talk to people who might not know the full truth. And when we're working with development, I don't think there's anyone that knows the full truth. But I'm just going to go through 3 of the things that I actually take away with me to daily life. I can talk for hours about this, but I've learned that I get thrown off the stage at some point. And we're going to start with the start. In role-playing games, we have something that's called a session 0. Now, sessions are essentially what we call a meeting. A meeting is generally considered a session. Session 0s is not because we're computer programmers, so we do 0 indexing. It's because we want to sit down first and establish borders. A session 0 is when you collect your group, and the first thing you do, and imagine now that you are in this setting where a lot of people are okay with killing others people. A lot of role-playing games are physical conflict. But a lot of people also don't want trauma with animals, for example. They don't like the idea of a family that betrays them because it might pull up old wounds or it might be things they never experience. So we do a session 0 and we talk about what are the limits of our imagination. What's the square? And we do this because we need security. It's in a sense psychological safety, but or more trust. And to support this, Because we can't imagine everything at the start, much like you can't just sit down with a new team and say, hey, so how are we going to work together? And then you're going to waterfall that thing and the team is going to work perfectly. We can't do that in role-playing games either. We're going to discover what we didn't want to do, where the limits are. And I really wanted to pull this in by using the X card. The X card is a physical object. You put it on the middle of the table, and it's a no question asked back out card. Someone raises it, all right, we crossed the limit, let's go out. And we've used similar methodologies when we have meetings, when the meeting is too quick, or when someone is not aware what's going on. No question asked, move out. We do a lot of this because if we don't put up limits and safety, and everyone's read Aristotle's by this, or Project Aristotle by this point, but we really need everyone to contribute. And that brings me to the second point, which is we've learned that stories are best told together. And now I don't mean as a chorus. I mean that a story needs all the nuances that each individual brings by telling it their way. In role-playing games, we do have a lot of stereotypes, as in all life, but specifically different type of player characters. Some people really like rolling a lot of dice. Some people want to feel like the big champion with a big sword. Some people just want to feel like they can discover friendship in a fantastic world. Some people want to be geniuses inventing new stuff. And much like a book that's only told by one perspective becomes quite boring after a while, so does role-playing. And so, I would argue, does product development. It's not about a cross-functional team working exactly the same all the time, because that misses the point of cross-functional as well. And by applying what I learned about switching spotlights between different individuals, it's much easier to, for example, during a backlog refinement, switch spotlight to, hey, can we talk about the story a little bit? Can we talk about what you see here? What might you be missing? And that brings me to my final point now, which is I, as a facilitator, I need to be their biggest fan. Patrick, the teacher I forgot about, is going to have a workshop about improv later. And in improv, you do yes and. You never say no, right? You never interrupt the flow. And role-playing game is, well, it's mostly based on improv. So it's the same. Someone tells, I want to climb this mountain. You don't say that's impossible. You don't have climbing gear. You say, okay, right, nice. So how do we make this happen? And in a sense, it's this saying, aim for the stars and reach the clouds. Sometimes you gotta be the person that they say, I want to reach the clouds, and you help them reach the stars. And I start this by being a fan of what they're doing, being impressed. We heard a great speech here yesterday about just this exact thing, the base case of saying, yes, that's amazing, let's do it. So as a facilitator in games, where I'm the entire world, remember, I have literally all the power. I want to start with saying, yeah, of course we can do that. Let's make it happen. Because I can invent whatever they need to make it happen. And the same thing when my developers talk to me, with my product owner, for example, I want to be their biggest fan. I want to believe that they can solve this problem, whatever it might be. Now, we might discover later that the way we thought about it wasn't correct. But if I start being a downer, if I start seeing all the risk, if I start being the negative archetype of an engineer, that becomes very, very difficult. It's much easier if I'm saying, yeah, of course, let's do that first. So to summarize, these are the things that I learned when being a role player. Establish trust first. Start by putting the limits. Talk to your colleagues or players, wherever they are, and say, so what's the thing that you really don't want to be happening here? Establish a value where we build things together by using our individual stuff, our individual voices, our individual skills. And start impressed by them. I mean, it's a mindset more than anything. And I know we had a talk last year about mindsets being bullshit, but it really is a way to start that helps you get forward. And I think if you apply these things, you can learn a lot from your leadership. But likewise, I think that you, as agile leaders, I think you would be amazing role players. I would urge you to try whatever kind of system, whatever is dragons or spaceships you want to work with. So that's my urge for you to do role playing and my suggestions on how to improve your leadership. Thank you.